The Trump and DeSantis campaign have been going against each other for the last couple of weeks. Now, the DeSantis campaign doesn't seem to understand why many people liked him and liked Trump in the first place. In fact, I'd argue that most of the people that like DeSantis like Trump as well, and he's going to need them to win anyway. But they don't really understand why, so they have advised DeSantis, and unfortunately, DeSantis has taken their advice and has done certain things that he otherwise wouldn't do if he really understood why people liked him. Now, and that's why his numbers are failing in the polls. I saw a news article that stated that DeSantis is now his numbers have plateaued, and his donors are beginning to wonder whether he has what it takes to make it over the long haul. He does, but he'll need to change a couple of things. A lot of people that like DeSantis from the beginning like DeSantis because he was like Trump, but he was not like Trump. Let me break that down. DeSantis had all the fire that Trump had. He had all the combativeness that Trump had. But most importantly, he had the ability to make a decision whether the rest of the world, the whole world, agreed with him or not. If you remember, during COVID, DeSantis was one of the few people, he ran one of the few states that opened up things, but he did it according to he did so according to his own thinking, his own plan. He considered the facts and made decisions from the facts, even if the rest of the world was against him. When the federal government was against him under Biden, he did so. When the media was against him, he did so. When other fellow state governors were against him, he did so. This is why many people admired him. He made the tough choices. And the Disney fight is 50-50 for me personally, in terms of when Disney spoke up against an action that the state government had made, it wasn't in Disney's place to do. And the first slam dunk against them was warranted. It was warranted. It was needed to curtail their need for crony capitalism. Their need to feel they could control the state legislature, the people's voice, because they were $1 billion company. That was warranted. Subsequent fights, however, like prolonging it and other stuff that seemed petty, were unnecessary. But I could understand that. But there's a thin line there. Apart from those, however, I mean, when I was working in Boston and I had family in Florida, when I flew from Boston, which was still shut down, which 7-Eleven's, the closest grocery store to me at the time was 7-Eleven. So 7-Elevens could only have about 3 or 4 people in the store at any one time. There were big plexiglasses in front of the cashiers. And there were signs where you could walk and where you could stand. And everything just seems so slow and draconian. In Florida, however, when you walked into Florida, everything seemed free. In fact, the difference between getting on a plane from Boston, flying over, getting to the airport in Florida, and walking out was stark. Was stark. It was like you entered into a different country with a different people. That's why people love DeSantis. He had the gumption to make the choice when no one else would. And when the media and other people attacked him, he stood his ground. He fought them back, but he stood his ground, which was the most important thing. He didn't cower or try to filter what he had to say. He just spoke. That's why people loved him. Now, all the traits I just mentioned are traits that Trump has to a large extent. I say to a large extent because Trump still cares about his image a lot. DeSantis doesn't seem to that much, but Trump does. And it's one of Trump's weaknesses. But apart from that, Trump made a lot of right decisions as well. And he made decisions that many people otherwise wouldn't have made, both domestically in the US before COVID and even during COVID. Now, I think this is where the problem starts. Because if you look at DeSantis' campaign, over the last couple of weeks, they have attacked Trump on stuff that anybody just thinks is ridiculous. Now, Trump has done the same, but there's a double standard here, and the double standard is warranted. The double standard is that Trump has always been like that, but it's a bad part of Trump that everybody saw and accepted. Trump attacks people. If you attack Trump, he attacks you back. And it's petty, it's childish, but people have accepted that in Trump because he used that attack on their behalf as well. He used that to fight the media. He used that to fight the Democrats. He used that to fight many people. And so people see Trump as their champion, and they've accepted that bad part of him, the weaknesses in him. DeSantis was supposed to be the upgrade. He was supposed to be the Trump without the downsides. Hence, he took decisions that were not popular and he stood by them. The problem is these two guys are now attacking themselves on the decisions that were made that were proper. So Trump attacks DeSantis on shutting down schools for a while. He attacks DeSantis on, I think, on vaccines. There are a long list of attacks that Trump attacks DeSantis on. And of course, he goes through the childish, sanctimonious attacks. DeSantis, however, now, again, people expect that from Trump. And when Trump did it in the beginning and we saw it, we shook our heads. But DeSantis did something that he should have kept doing, which was he ignored the heck out of Trump. DeSantis never responded to those attacks. And when you see a leader like that, he's able to take a hit. And out of a place of both respect, because Trump did help him win his first election, but secondly, respect for what Trump did as president. Trump did a lot domestically, foreign affairs, during the COVID era. And one of the things that the DeSantis campaign has chosen to attack Trump on is the fact that he shut down the country. That decision was a right decision. When you hear news stories of 2 million people dead overseas and a virus that is spreading so quickly and killing so many people, and it's a virus that you do not yet understand, you don't even know its source. And when I mean source, I mean you don't understand where it came from, how it came about. This is stuff that we're just beginning to understand now. You don't know all the facts. The right thing to do is to shut down the country. You shut down the country, you shut down the borders until you know what the hell is going on. Trump did that, and that was the right decision. And Trump did it even against the advice of his own people. That was the right decision. They shut down the country for a while. That was the right decision. Now, there are economic costs. And there are quality of life costs. And by quality of life, I include even important stuff like people's grandmas, people died, and their family were not able to be close to them. Now, in that beginning stage of the virus, at the very early stages of the virus, the pandemic, that was sad but understandable and even right, because restricting the movement of people allowed you to understand where the virus was coming from, where the virus was killing the most, and restrict the likelihood that it would get spread. Now, the idea is as you're doing that, you're seeking more knowledge. And by the way, the mRNA vaccines, people criticize it a lot, but it allowed older people to survive longer, right? So if you look at what DeSantis did in Florida, he made sure he focused on the old rather than the young. So the vaccine mandates were crazy because the science didn't support it. But the vaccine itself, Operation Warp Speed, was a good thing. Now, do you see what I'm saying here? Is that when you as DeSantis now attack Trump on things that he did that were right, because Trump is attacking you on things that you did that were right, you have simply become Trump. Even worse, you've become Trump light, because you can never be Trump, right? You can never be Trump. But people fall in love with traits, not necessarily people. That's why they love Trump's positive traits, but they despise his negative traits. And because they love his positive traits, they love Trump. Now, you had the positive traits that Trump had without the negatives. The problem is you traded that in. You traded that in likely because people wanted you to be stronger against Trump and maybe more like Chris Christie. And you didn't want to show weakness. But you were the difference. It's that difference that people loved, right? The sad thing is it now makes people begin to question your ability to actually lead on your own thinking. If you allow your advisors to advise you to go against a man who, one, helped you win your first election, two, made good decisions while president, and three, made good decisions while president against what other people wanted him to do. Now, you are able to attack him on those issues because they've suddenly become unpopular in the Republican Party. But as a principled man, you do exactly what you are supposed to be built to do, which is you stand on what you think was right, whether people support it or not. So it's okay to tell your constituents this was the right thing to do at the time. It may not feel like that today because we have past data, because hindsight is 2020. But when you're on the hot seat and you have to make the right decisions, you make it. You make it and accept it's clear it was clearly wrong at the time. You can apologize for the consequences, meaning if we had known what we know now, we would have done different. But you do not apologize for the actions because you did not know what you know now. So you couldn't have done different. But instead, what has happened is DeSantis is attacking Trump on things he did right because Trump is attacking him on things he did right. Now, focus on your campaign. I mean, focus on the issues, focus on the people. You've been a good leader, focus on that. Ignore the hell out of what Trump says or Chris Christie says. Nobody cares. Do what you did in the beginning. It shows you're a mature, thoughtful leader, principled leader. Do that. Trump will make all the noise he wants to make. Everybody expects that from Trump. Even people who like Trump expect that from Trump. But you ignore that and you focus on the things you've done right and you win. That's why the independents liked you. And that's why even some Democrats were likely going to vote for you because you stood on what you thought was right, even when the rest of the world celebrated other leaders. And you never apologized for it. Now it seems like you're apologizing for, I mean, you're not apologizing for the right things you did, but you're apologizing for the right things another leader did. I mean, you're condemning the right things another leader did because he's attacking you, and that makes you less principled. If you see this, I hope it helps. And if you don't, I hope somebody around you is able to see these same things and communicate it to you because you will make a good president if you can turn this around and actually become as principled as you seem to be.